Good day to you. Welcome to another episode of the Fighting Men of Rhodesia on YouTube. It's my pleasure to have Judy TalbotJones on board today, one of the few rare and brave ladies to come forward and give her talk. Judy wasn't in the military, but she's going to give us an overview of what it was like to be a civilian during the war, which will bring up a few interesting points. And Judy is talking to us from the United States, to me here in Mud Island in England. And yeah, Judy, welcome to the program.
Hi, Tony. Thanks for having me. Yeah, my point of view is really more from the wife of a soldier than anything else.
Yeah.
And, what happened at home when he was gone and blah, 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 blah,
And that's a very important aspect because, if it wasn't for our ladies supporting us morally and in many other ways, the comfort of home and all that type of thing, I think a lot of us would have collapsed a lot quicker. Give us an overview of where you were raised and how you ended up doing what you did in life in Rhodesia.
I grew up in South Africa in a little village called Ikopo. I was born in Maritzburg. I know you know Peter Maritzburg. At the old Grays, and also did my nurse's training there. And let me see. So I finished that, and after I got through with that, I got married, and we moved to Zimbabwe with my husband's parents.
Rhodesia, yeah.
Yes, Rhodesia. Anyway, so we kind of bumbled around there till we found where we were going. Spent a month or two in Headlands, just figuring out what was next, and then moved to Chipinge. We were there for a couple of years, and Ken was called up while we were there, like in 72 or 3, I think. So
What job was he doing, Judy?
At that point, he was in 4RR in 73.
Okay, but I mean,
that was Charlie Jock.
When you arrived,
when we got there,
yeah, was he a farmer?
No, he had a company with my father-in-law, doing earth moving and stuff like that. They built a dam down in the Sabi somewhere, and they cleared all the land for the Sabi farmers that did the cotton and the wheat. Actually, those guys did pretty darn well, because the land was very fertile. It was that black cotton soil. And it was very fertile. They used to be able to get 3 crops in a year, so they did good. And then from there, the work petered out there. So he sold all the stuff up and went to, he got a job in Salisbury, but we moved to Merendillis near his folks. And then stayed there a year, and then they introduced petrol rationing. So then that took care of that. We had to move to Salisbury then.
I think it was 5 units a week per family, wasn't it, or per car? Which was, I think, a unit was a gallon, if somebody can correct me.
It was a litre, I think.
Or a litre. It was ridiculous.
Yeah.
Couldn't even get to the shops and back.
I had a Mini, and my monthly allocation was 4 coupons. It's like, damn.
That's terrible. I mean, if you had it, I think most people did okay on motorbikes. I was fortunate enough to have been based in the police when rationing came out, and we had an entire sheet of them plonked on the desk on a Friday, and there were only about, I don't know, 8 of us that just piled into that, and we got about 15 each. It was lovely.
You are lucky.
Yeah.
I had a big borrow and steal when I had emergencies.
Well, it became as viable and as valuable as currency. I mean, people were swapping them for all sorts of favors, and yeah.
Yep. Yeah. Later on, when I had to go and work with a girl whose husband Dave Cordell was killed, he had some kind of run-in with a grenade, and I didn't have the gas money to go up there, so it was big borrow and steal to get there. Anyway, that's kind of later in the story. But I enjoyed Salisbury. when we were in Marandellas, going back a little bit, used to hang out with Buster Johnson and the Louths, Rich and Ann Louth. Buster's wife, she ran the nursery school, and Brendan went to nursery school there. This is my second boy. And then on to Salisbury. The call-ups just kept coming, you know. They never went away.
Was that still with 4RR, or was he transferred to another battalion?
Well, initially he was with 4RR. And then actually I had a real hard time because he was off on doing his thing when somebody from the jock called me and said they need to speak to him. And I said, you've had him for 3 weeks. What have you done with him? And I kid you not, the guy said, oh, he was wounded. That's all. Scared the hell out of me. My mind just went into a total fritz. I couldn't think what to do next. And I ended up calling his boss, Rich Hoare, sorry, beg pardon, who I think he was a lieutenant then. And he said, hang on a minute. And he called and spoke to somebody and then came back and he said, oh, he's on the 10 o'clock train, or the 5 o'clock train. And I had my sister's 2 kids visiting. They were little boys. And I had my 3 little boys. And I just yelled at my poor old neighbor next door, Herbie, the sweetest old man. Watch the kids, I gotta go. I didn't take my purse. I didn't take anything. I just grabbed the keys and went to the station because it was like 5 minutes away. When he got off the train, all I could see was a plaster cast and 5 little toes sticking out. It was like, I just started to cry.
Well,
anyway,
this shows just what ladies went through, this continual waiting and anticipation of a hubby coming home, and it must have been awful. So was he injured in a landmine, or how did that?
They were ambushed, I believe, and he hurt his foot jumping off the truck, but they still had a long, heavy duty march. He said it was like 40 Ks, maybe 20 out and 20 back. I don't know. So while he healed, I kind of got my life back inside of me and trying to just deal with it, because you still got 3 tiny little boys. I think the oldest one was in 2nd grade. There's a lot of chivying to do there. One of the things I did notice was that when he would be away, he'd come back and we have like 2 days of honeymoon. And then on the 3rd day, we would have this hellacious fight. And then everybody kind of settled down again until it was coming up time for him to go the next round. So for that last week or so before the next round, he would be rather edgy. But, that's just the way it goes. And then
what year was that, Judy?
That had to be in 75.
75.
And then from there he went to RIC, and that's where he met up with Dave Cordell, who was in the same group with him. I think he was based in Sonoyas at the Vukwis TTL, and his thing was to, I guess, just go check on who's doing what where. Make sure everybody got their food, blah, blah, blah. One of the things that did happen when we were in Marandellas, Ken's mother was ambushed. She called me. She was in a terrible state. Sorry about the arms. She was in a terrible state, and I had to beg, borrow, and steal coupons so that I could get out there. And they were about 18 miles away. And Ken came with me because he had to get an Uzi from work. And he came with me, and then we met up with Pop, who was out looking for these guys. And bless his heart, he's deaf as a doorpost, and he's out looking for these guys. Now, okay, he was one relationally good shot. He was really a good marksman. That's fine, but if you walk into something because you don't hear them, it's all very well and good. He did have one of the younger laborers with him who was very good. But I felt better once I turfed Ken out where we found Pop, and he went with him. But in the meantime, I still had to get, yeah?
This incident is a little bit disjointed. Where, what, when, and how did you go to do what? I'm not quite sure.
Ken's father was looking for the CTs, and he was deaf as a doorpost. He did have one guy with him from one of his laborers, but then I was very worried that he was going to walk into something that he didn't hear.
And where was this? On his farm? Who is Ken? If you could give a little bit more detail.
Ken was my husband.
Okay.
At the time.
And you went where?
We were in Marandellas, but they lived on a farm called Springfield, about 18 miles away.
Okay.
And so Ken went to go help his father. I took the boys and went on back down to the farmhouse. And I think that was good because the kids are little and they get into stuff, and that kept Nan busy. That was good. Louis Buerto, who was from Topanga, he had a farm there. He was taking his kids back to school in Umtali, along with a neighbor girl, Shirley, and I forget their last name. She was 16, and they hit a landmine. Louis and this girl, Shirley, were the only survivors. The whole family was wiped out. And Shirley, bless her heart, she had her legs blown off, just above the knee. I saw a picture of her not too long ago. She was doing pretty well. She's grown up, married. I think she had a couple of kids, which that's great. That's great. But everybody else. Louis came to see me, and he was so scarred up from the shrapnel. I guess you're in a Land Rover, and there's kids in there. God knows what all's flying around in there. But anyway, onto RIC. Ken was sort of staying in Sonoya mostly with a family called the Shattocks. I don't know if you ever ran into them. Rob and I own a Shattuck. So I went up there once or twice to go and visit him. And the one time that I was there, the first time I went, we kind of just lazed around for most of the time. But then he had to go and do some test firing on some weapons I don't know, but they were figuring out where they came from and I don't know, all that stuff. Something about the grains of powder. And I like shooting. I really enjoy it. And so I was out there helping him test fire these guns. They were AKs, and there was a machine gun, which was great. That was a hoot. But, obviously, I'd mentioned I'm very short, so I had to lay down because I couldn't hold the thing up. But that's okay. I can do that. I don't know where these butts were. They must have been in Sonoya. And they had like big metal plates on that you were aiming for. So what else happened after that? The next time I went, we thought that he was going to be doing the same thing again, where not much going on the weekend. Unfortunately, that wasn't the case. And there was a radio next to his bed for, I guess, running goings on. So off he went to go and deal with whatever it was he had to deal with, and he didn't come back. And now I was starting to get worried. I went into the room, and I could hear this fighting going on. I don't know if it was a firefight or just a smallish skirmish or quite what, but that scared me to death. At the end of the weekend, I had a little white patch right here. My hair had gone white. But okay, all right. So we got over that. And I know somebody else had told you something about sixth sense. Let me tell you, it's important to listen to your sixth sense. Or as I call them, the bees in my bonnet. I listened to my bees. They bailed me out several times.
Can you give us an example?
The one time when Ken was still with 4RR, I had gone south to my folks to the farm in South Africa. And I developed this very strange thing, just found this little fat part between your finger and thumb, where it was like I don't know, it was a really weird thing I'd never seen before. And I thought, oh, well, if it gets to where it bothers me, I will go see a doctor. I get back home and Ken's got a scab in exactly the same place. He got a piece of shrapnel in there. Right before he got that broken fractured foot, I had gone to bed, and there was, as I was going down the hallway, I saw this little black figure shoot across the passageway down to the left on the down the other hallway. And I thought it was one of the boys out of bed messing around. So I went to go and chew him out, and it wasn't him. Everybody was in bed asleep. I don't know what it was. And that was the time that Ken came home with a broken foot. Another time later on, considerably later on, when they blew up the petrol tanks, I was in an office just behind there. I got this bee in my bonnet. It was like the 22nd or the 23rd of December. And my bee said, you have to go. Ken was not happy with me because he was leaving the following day to go off for his next roundup. I tried everything. I eventually managed to get 4 tickets, but only as far as Joburg. So I said, I can find them. We'll take the plane from there. We'll take a train. Well, the youngest one got himself misplaced in all those people, just crowds of people on the station platform. Fortunately, I had him dressed up in a red tracksuit so I could figure out where he was. We go down to my mom's farm. And by the time I got there, the petrol tanks had been and gone. So that's it. Listen to your bees.
So you didn't actually see the fuel tanks get burnt down?
No, I knew I had to get out of there, that it was dangerous. I couldn't it was like, I cannot stay here right now.
Mm.
So, and it's more a case of like right now rather than I'm not coming back or anything.
Yeah. What was your day-to-day job while Ken was off in either working in his job or out in RIC?
I worked at Stuttgart Van Lines at the time,
mm-hmm.
In the accounting office. Not that I'm very good at math or anything. In fact, I really stink. But anyway, that's where I was.
And did you find that sanctions, it's something we can actually talk about a bit here, that sanctions were affecting your business, fuel, spare parts, new trucks, tires? How did it impact your company that you were working for?
You know, I wasn't really involved with that. I was more like used to do like payroll and stuff like that. Mm. That was the big thing that I was working on, was payroll, and then accepting payments if people came in and wanted to pay for a shipment. Then they'd send the money back to me and I'd give them a receipt, what have you. Fortunately, I don't know, it was a really nice group of people in there. One of the lads had immigrated, gone to California, loved California, but then decided, no, he wanted to go home, thank you very much. So he was only here for like 6 months.
Yeah, I mean, there's something about Africa, you can't get it out from under your skin. And your kids are going to school, so I assumed you work half a day, pick them up at lunchtime?
No, I had a babysitter for them in the afternoons.
Well, how did the war impact your life living in a city? I know, just speaking to a guy I interviewed a few weeks ago, he gave a list of all the restaurants that were available in Salisbury, and it was over 40. So there was never any shortage of food and social life and going out for fun and bowling.
No.
Although 1 or 2 restaurants got blown up by terrorists lobbing grenades in there or whatever, but nothing seemed to stem the joy of nightlife. But going out of town, you would be restricted. You couldn't travel at night. You couldn't. But did you find other things started to affect you? For example, luxury goods. I know women couldn't get bras, and cars were few and far between in the showrooms, and we all longed to eat Cadbury's chocolate again. And there was just none of that around. And our little WRS radios made in Rhodesia suddenly started popping up, which was an incredible testimony to our people. But did you find anything like that frustrating for you?
Not too much, because I used to go down south to my folks at least once a year, and became magnificent smugglers.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. Yeah, my friend was smuggling out silver. I don't know if you know those things you put on the wall that looked like a motor car. It was about an inch thick, and it looked like a 1920s motor car. He used to make those with a mold. But whereas most people would use copper or something, he was using solid silver, and he was sending it to his jewelry firm in Durban.
Smart move.
I won't tell you who it was, but
it wasn't Bill Chalmers by any chance.
Hey?
Wasn't Bill Chalmers by any chance?
No, not at all. No, he still began with a C. But there was a lot of that, and in my case, I mean, people might accuse me of taking over the talk now, but it's really a chat of what went on in that period. And we used to get a lot of exchanges for big bottles of Mosaic orange juice. People absolutely loved. We used to get the big demi-johns and take demi-johns of Mosaic orange down to South Africa, and then in return get maybe chocolates or whatever. So exchange is no robbery, is it?
The one time my mother-in-law had asked me to get a sack of tomato seed. Now we're talking about like a big sack. And I was in the station wagon. I was like, okay. So I went and got this, put it in the station wagon, and then of course you put your baggage in there and all your stuff all over it, and the kids throw their jackets in there. And one of Ken's friends was going to make sure I got home. Anyway, he went up there with me. He drove up, and going through customs, he didn't know the sack of tomato seed was in the bag. And when we got there, it was kind of late, and there was no accommodation. And it turned out that his boss and one of the customs officers were buddies. So they invited us to their home. So here I take my 200-pound sack of tomato seed with me to the customs officer's house. Still all covered up. And Chris didn't know I had it until we got back home and started unpacking. And then he hit the roof because he happened to be a policeman.
Oh, I think a lot of those guys just turned a blind eye to us cities trying to get stuff in. They know we needed it. Now, obviously, going to and from South Africa by car, you must have gone through the convoy.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
Tell us about a convoy trip. Was it boring, too slow? Glad that you had the security? What was it like?
It was one of those things where you either going flat out to catch up, or you down going 20 miles an hour. It seemed like it concertinaed all the time, and you couldn't just keep a steady pace. One time, I guess Brendan must have eaten something because he threw up, but couldn't stop. He had to stay in the convoy.
Yeah, I mean, for our foreign viewers, I think, where did the convoy start? On the Bight Bridge Road? They probably started in Fort Victoria.
Yeah.
And it was basically...
It moved up a little further closer.
Did it?
After a while.
It was basically made up of police escort vehicles, one or two, with a guy standing on the back of a Mazda vehicle with a mounted machine gun.
Yeah.
And, they always used to remind me of the Jim Carrey movie, Me, Myself, and Irene, when Jim Carrey rode along on a motorbike and he got bugs in his teeth and his eyeglasses. Those guys on the back of those Mazdas must have been just like that, eating bugs all the way to the border. But it was there to deflect any potential attack by terrorists on a convoy, and obviously made you feel secure.
The only time I ever heard of the convoy being attacked was one between Charlie and Chipinga. And this very, very sweet friend of ours, Angela King, she and her husband were in that convoy when it was attacked. And Angela jumps out with her Uzi, and she is just apparently cussing and swearing and shooting and madder than a snake. Which is strange when you think of what a gentle soul she was.
It was like the wild, wild west, really, wasn't it?
Absolutely.
Mm.
But otherwise, I never did hear of any other ambushes where there was, with the convoy.
Mm.
One of the things when Ken got to RIC was they decided that us wives, because the husbands were known, so they now knew where all the families were. So they decided that we needed to learn how to protect ourselves. And that's all very well and good. I mean, that didn't bother me too much because my father had taught me how to shoot when I was a little kid on his old 303. And let me tell you, that thing kicked like an SOB. My 10-year-old shoulder was like blue.
Yeah.
I won the competition, though.
What for the biggest bruise?
No, it was the women shooting. This was in South Africa. And I don't think they had much in the way of instruction. I think the husbands just said, "Here, shoot this." Pretty much like my dad did. And okay, he did coach me a teeny bit.
So up in Rhodesia, like when you were at Sonoy or wherever, did you ladies groups get together to do self-defense things?
When we were in Salisbury, we used to gather at Cranbourne. I think it was like once every 6 weeks or so. And it was a mandatory thing. And they would take us out into the bush someplace or the other, usually where there were butts. So I don't know where that was, close. I enjoyed that for the most part. The RSM, I think his name was Bill, but I'm not sure. He used to stand behind me and say, "Okay, I want this placement." Turkey. So the one time I decided I was tired of taking the Beretta, which I had to then learn how to strip and all that good stuff. So I took this little Serena 410 shotgun that I had. It was just a pistol grip with a screw-on butt. It was like a metal rod, and you screwed on this flat plate. But I didn't use that. I just was using the pistol grip. And he's standing behind me saying, "Okay, I want this placement and that placement, that place." And that's a brand new target. So I'll know. And okay, all right. So I took my 410 buckshot and shot the target to hell.
So when you say that training was mandatory, was that just for a certain group of people in a group of ladies in Salisbury, or for everyone?
I don't know. I don't know if they did other people from other places. I would assume from other cities that they would have their own, especially if you were looking at the places that had a job to go to.
And was that so that you could self-defend at your place of work, or you would have had a predetermined place to go to defend yourself? What was the plan there?
It was basically they wanted us to learn how to shoot and what to look for, in a nutshell. But they did walk us through things like if your gun jams, how to strip it and how to put it back together again. Excuse me.
This was for individual defense at your home. It wasn't for you to come together as a military,
group. No.
As a group.
No.
No. Okay.
The first time we went, and they were showing us around, because everybody brought their own individual guns with them, whatever it was they had to use. And the idea was to teach us how to take care of them, strip them, oil them, blah, blah, blah. Each person had one of the soldiers behind them or next to them, so that if they got stuck, they could show them how to do whatever. Well, I had this Beretta. There was an older guy sitting next to me. I say older, he may be like in his 40s, but I was only like 26, 27. So he was an old guy.
Yeah.
And so he was between his wife and me. And he didn't know the Serena, so not the Serena, the Beretta. So he wanted me to, okay, this is how you're going to strip it. And only he couldn't figure it out. And he tried this and he tried that and he pressed this and he pulled that. And, he was fussing and cussing and his wife was all embarrassed next to him, trying to get him to hush. Anyway, when he finally got it, he didn't know what, it was one of those things where you don't know what you did, but it worked. But he figured it out. And there was just one little lever that you had to push. A bit like a safety catch, but it wasn't a safety catch.
Did your husband Ken, when he was back from call-ups and all that, he was obviously carrying on in a civilian job. Did he ever, lie next to you at night or over the dinner table after the kids had gone to bed? Did he tell you about what he did out in the bush?
Not a thing.
Not a thing.
I know that they used to go out on OPs, but other than that, no. The one time he came home and he was rather distressed because one of their group had been killed. And what it distressed him so much was the guy was shot, but they couldn't get to him. And, there was that feeling of maybe I could have done something. But if you can't get there, you can't get there.
No, obviously, you're not a Rhodesian, you're a South African. Did you ever start to think, what the heck am I doing here? And where's the end game? I've got kids to think of. Did you ever start?
Oh, yeah, I thought about that, but I didn't want to go to South Africa. To me, the writing was on the wall from way back when. I just couldn't see the point in going there. And having 3 boys, particularly, I didn't want them to grow up in that mess.
Did you ever put anything down on paper, any journal, or did you try to write a book?
I don't have the patience for that. I did try, but then it's like you have a spurt and then there's nothing because you're busy doing other things like out in the garden.
Mm-hmm.
I spend a lot of time outside as much as I can, really.
Mm-hmm.
And, it helped in those days when I had someone who could clean the house, but now there isn't. I'm forced to come in.
Is Ken still alive?
Yeah, he's living on the other side of Atlanta.
Oh, I see. So you're not together anymore?
No, well, I think it was like a lot of people, Once there was no more threat, a lot of people broke up. And, us women used to say that the guys couldn't handle being married for 365 days a year because they would be gone all the time. And then they come back and you got 5-6 weeks and then you're gone again, which is not really conducive to a long-term familial relationship.
Yeah, you raise a very good point there. A lot of marriages did end because there was escapism during call-ups, and then reality hit, and even moving country is as bad as a divorce and often led to divorce as well.
Ken once did say that when he is out in the bush, he only has himself to think about and the guys with him. When he's at home, it's kind of, this thing's broken. I need help with that. The kids need this. Somebody needs that. And you still got to work.
Yeah, a lot of pressure.
There's bills to be paid. There was like no comprehension that while you're gone, who do you think does all this crap?
Did you ladies build a support group amongst yourselves, somewhere where you could go and have tea with a group of ladies in the afternoon, or even 1 or 2 people, just to talk things over?
I had my group of friends, but they were not actually involved with military stuff.
But I mean, even
the only one that was Anne Lauf. But then their marriage broke up. But she still had an inkling of what was going on.
Yeah, but I mean, it doesn't even have to revolve around military stuff. It's just ladies getting together, talk about problems. Hey, have you got some fuel coupons for me? How are you finding things? Did you ever?
I had several friends like that. What I liked was that it was kind of a drop-in society. Didn't have to make formal appointments to come to tea, Yeah.
Yes, that was very unique about Rhodesia. You could just pop in whenever you wanted to. Here in the UK, you virtually have to make an appointment unless you get to know people really well. But even then, you can feel a little bit of stickiness in the atmosphere. You could literally drop in on anybody that you knew, and you'd be welcome to have a cup of tea,
Or just sit down and shoot the breeze for a while.
Yeah, yeah. Are you living in Georgia at the moment?
I am about 45 miles north of Atlanta.
Right.
And Ken is on the south side.
And the people there, Atlanta is Georgia, isn't it?
Yeah, yeah.
They're very friendly people, I believe, and very, easy to get on with by and large, are they?
Some of them. I mean, that's what you hear proposed. And they pride themselves on Southern hospitality. But when you're actually in it, you got to think about it.
So going back to Rhodesia, at what point did your time there end? Did you go right to the end, right to the majority?
Ken resigned in September of 79.
Mm-hmm.
And I left in January of 80 because the visas are only valid for 4 months. And I couldn't see 5 of us landing on his sister here in the States for an indefinite period. I said, you go find yourself a job and then we'll come over and join you. But it had to be within the 4 months.
How did you get hold of that visa? I mean, that was, they were offering, I know they offer a certain number each year. Is that what you got?
Ken's sister was already here and a citizen.
Mm-hmm.
And because he was born in Kenya, he was on a shorter list than if you were Rhodesian or South Africa. It still took us 2 years. And they keep telling you, don't do anything with your stuff. You don't have permission. Don't do anything. We'll let you know. Well, they do. They called the day before. Ken said they were in the middle of stock taking. I was busy, just regular work. And then we had these 3 kids, and they called the day before, and they said, be in the offices, the embassy offices in Joburg, no less, at 8 o'clock tomorrow morning.
Oh my word!
Yeah, that's what we said. We dumped the kids off with friends of ours because we didn't have time to go to the farm, and literally, grabbed our bags and got on the plane. Went down, and you answered like 3 or 4 stupid questions. If you had a brain, you would know them, those kind.
Mm.
And that was it. We said, okay, here's your visas.
Wow.
But now, at the time you couldn't sell your property in days. It might take years. People weren't willing at that point to lay a lot of money out. So we just walked away from the house. And my little Mini, I was really sad to lose my Mini because it was one of the old ones. I mean, so old that the door handle died of fatigue, metal fatigue. Mm-hmm. And the gear shift, you could take the gear shift out and shake it, it passes by.
And stones.
It really was. But I never had a minute's trouble with it. It got me everywhere I wanted to go with it, from Chipinge to Marandellas to Chipinge. And, there was no issues with it. Mm. So not like cars these days,
Did you ever think that living in Rhodesia was a waste of time? Did you ever regret it?
I loved living there.
Mm.
I actually preferred that to South Africa, which is where I grew up.
Mm.
The people were much kinder, nicer people. Mm. It was much easier to make friends, except when I was in Chipinge. Chipinge, I don't know, I must have ticked off somebody because nobody wanted to know who I was.
Well, all small communities are very cliquish, and I get if you just stand on one wrong toe, that's it, really. But it's a beautiful area of the country, isn't it?
It is. It is. And so, yeah, I didn't care for Chipinge because I didn't have any friends and I was lonely and oh, I'd had a bunch of burglaries when we were at Salisbury, like 3 in a row. Just annoyed me like crazy. The cops said I couldn't hook the gate up to the mains. I was that angry about it. So I put the kids to bed. I was headed for bed. It was about 10 o'clock. The lights were out. And I went to go and get myself a glass of something out the fridge. But I didn't turn the lights on. I just, used the fridge light. And as I'm coming back, I hear tick, 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 tick on the window. Like somebody's, you know how they would work the putty and make enough space to get a wire through? That one. And I was so annoyed. I was like, damn it, you're not going to do it again. So I got down on my hands and knees and scuffled under the window and off to my room. I got the Serena, the buckshot one. And I went back and I figured, okay, this is about where a head would be. But maybe I need to look before I actually pull the trigger. And damn, it was a good thing I did too, because it was my friend from up the street's husband, blitzed out of his gourd. He was absolutely blown. So I opened the blinds. I said to him, Gordon, I damn near shot you. What do you think I would tell Jane and your children? Because her kids and mine were like 3 interchangeable kids. She had 3 boys. I had 3 boys. And you fed and clothed whoever was in your house. It was one of those.
He must have been subliminally attracted to you somehow.
He drank way too much for me. He was a typical little Irishman. He was, I know when they first got there, he invited Ken out to the pub with him. So off they go to the pub. Ken said he was fine until he got a couple of drinks in him. And then he just kind of lost it. And he was picking on all of the biggest people he could find there. And Ken was trying to talk him out of there and get him home. But he wasn't, he was being stubborn.
Oh, the fights in pubs and restaurants, they were renowned, the cock door and that type of thing.
Yeah.
Army guys beating the heck out of each other.
My most embarrassing story. How can we forget my most embarrassing story? It was one of our ladies' days, and they had taken us into the map room at Cranbourne. And it's just a little cramped space, and there was like 200 women. So they said, leave your guns out here in a pile, and they'll be safe here. You can collect them when you come back. Well, I forgot. And when I got home the next day, I wanted to show Ken in the morning because he was late coming home or something. I don't know why I didn't the night before, but anyway. So I wanted to show him the next morning. Hey, the sight is on the Beretta was wobbly, needed to be reseated somehow. Except it wasn't in my purse. It was still at the barracks.
You'd left it behind.
I called. No, nobody's seen it. Nobody had it. Nobody wants, I called Ken. I said, I can't find it. They said, I can't find it. I said, but, I left it outside the map room where they told us to put them. Well, apparently they got to him and told him, don't you tell her where it is. It was in they'd taken it to the armory. And then they didn't tell me until about 4:30. Okay, we found it. You have to come and get it. And your punishment is drinks all around who's ever in the pub. That was a lot of money for whoever was going to be in there.
Yeah.
So I meet the RSM on the way in. And he says, come on. I mean, it was just kind of almost wanted to take me by the ear and lead me in. So I go in there, and they made me stand on this table. Above the table was this bell. So the room's full of people. There's a couple of women in there, but mostly men, soldiers. The colonel was in there. I don't remember his name. A couple other guys. And they made me stand on this table. They rang the bell so everybody would look. She left her gun in the armory and outside the map room. What do we do to people who leave their guns behind? Oh, man. So there's all of us commentary from the peanut seats, and I was just so red in the face. I mean, I was burning up. I was just so embarrassed. So eventually, after they finished, decrying my crimes, they let me down. So I went up to the bar to go and get the drinks that I was supposed to order for everybody, and the colonel said it was okay. Don't worry about it. And I was like, thank you, because that would have been a lot of money then.
So your punishment was an embarrassment, basically.
Yeah, exactly. And I don't think I have ever been so embarrassed in my life.
Yeah.
And I'm not one for public exhibition.
Yeah, you would have gone to jail for a long time if you'd been a soldier losing your rifle.
Mm-hmm. Oh boy, and they really dressed me down, but more in an embarrassing kind of way, rather than yelling and fighting and fussing, But
Yeah.
yes, I mean, it was a crime to lose your weapon, anyhow, at the best of times, regardless of how or where or why.
Yeah, yeah.
In fact, our very first ladies' days, somebody put their gun against a tree, and then they got up and moved off. And they got nabbed for it and made to run around the butts carrying. Yeah. There was a funny incident. That first ladies' day, we got soaked. The rain came down in just buckets, and we got totally soaked, including our clothes, our guns, our everything. Then we came back, and the guy who'd been taking the class, so to speak, said, now remember, when you get home, you have got to strip them, clean them, dry them, oil them. And somebody, I don't know who, said, what oil? Perfectly legitimate request. And he said, anything you have in the house, anything. Hey, that's anything to me. So I get home, I tried to palm it off on my husband to do, but he wasn't having any part of it. And okay, so I did the main piece of the weapon, but then Ken says, oh no, you got to do the magazine as well. And I said, well, they didn't show us how to do that. He said, you just slide the back off. But he didn't, that's all he said. We had like a silver leaf. It was like silver and gray patterned carpet. And I'm 2 sheets to the wind, having just come from the clubhouse. I slide the back off, and all this stuff just shoots everywhere, all over the carpet. I don't know what it is. I don't know what it looks like. I don't know what it feels like. And I can't see it anyway. So here I am on my hands and knees, groveling around, feeling for stuff. I eventually got it all back together again. But the guy had said, oil it, any oil. I just didn't happen to have any oil in the house except linseed oil. So here I am, and I was oiling it away. Ken says, what are you using? I said, linseed oil. He nearly hit the roof. I said, look, the guy said, use any oil. I'm using any oil, but not linseed oil. I said, don't take it up with me. You go talk to the guy who gave us the instruction. His name was Lieutenant, I forget what it was. Well, of course, he wasn't going to do that because he was just a private. So he was not happy with that. I had to then go down to the gas station and get some paraffin to clean it all over again. I didn't know it would just go hard. Apparently, when it dries, it gets very sticky, and then it doesn't work.
Yep.
So I was in the doghouse for that. But I loved living in Rhodesia. It was just a very friendly, homely, down to earth kind of place.
Mm.
Not a lot of backbiting and cheating, and But anyway, I think that's about all. It was interesting.
No, Judy, thank you very much for coming along and just sharing with us an overview of what it was like to be a civilian lady during the war years, a different point of view, which is great. I'd like to encourage other ladies to come forward. You all performed wonderful tasks and roles, nurses, whatever, in the army, whatever. So I'd like to hear more from you if I possibly can. Even farmers' wives, that's one topic I really want to get into. They went through a lot. So, Judy, thanks very much again. I really appreciate your talk. And once it's all edited, it'll come out straight and look great.
Well, I hope you can keep me in one place.
Yeah, one place, camera, yeah, not moving. Anyway, thanks very much, Judy, and all the very best for your future there, and I hope life treats you well.
Thanks, Tony. I'm sure it will.
Okay. God bless.
Take care.
Bye-bye. God bless.